What's going on, Dirty Birds? This is Tori McElhaney, joined by Terrin and Amna for the Falcons Final Whistle Podcast presented by Zaxby's. And we are here to break down a season finale of the Atlanta Falcons 2024 season that didn't quite go, I think, the way that many thought it would. The Falcons lost in overtime 44-38 to the Carolina Panthers, who finished their season 5-12. The Falcons finished theirs 8-9. And as Will wrote in our rundown, on a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day, the Atlanta Falcons 2024 season is officially over because simultaneously as the Falcons lost to the Bucs, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers held on and beat the New Orleans Saints to clinch the NFC South for the fifth year in a row. Can't remember exactly how many it's been, but it's been a long time since the Falcons have been atop the NFC South. I can tell you that. So now that the season is kind of over, guys, and we look back on what it was, before we even get into this game, I want to talk big picture. How did you feel kind of as you're sitting there? Because I know for me, I was sitting and watching, the game happening in front of us, and then also on the laptop watching what the Saints were doing. And at halftime, when this thing it felt like the NFC South was literally like hanging in the balance.
For sure.
And then obviously it turned the complete wrong way for the Falcons. But what were your thoughts, you guys, as y'all were going through the day and watching what the Saints were doing, what the Bucs were doing, and then what we were watching for the Falcons? Amna, you want to go first?
Yeah. I mean, I was definitely watching because I even have it like for the stream. I have it earlier, so I'm able to see everything that's happening before anybody really knows, other than the people that are there with the live stream. And it felt like things were trending in the way like, oh, could this actually happen?
Yeah.
Right? Like the Saints were up, the Falcons, were neck and neck with the Panthers, and it felt like, okay, the things that like they had been saying this whole time, control what you can control. That's what they're doing. They have it in their hands right now. And let's just see how, things fall as they may. And then the second half of both teams happened. And it was funny how it was happening. Yeah, literally simultaneously.
Right, yeah.
Because as like the Falcons, I think it was their last touchdown to tie it up before getting into overtime, the flags were waving in Mercedes-Benz Stadium just as Tampa Bay goes up 27-19, and it's like, oh.
Yeah. It was like the energy just kind of diffused out of the building a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, like on the first play of overtime, Tampa won. They clinched. It was over.
And it kind of felt like a moot point at that point for the Falcons to go into overtime with the Panthers. Terrin, I'm curious your thoughts on the day and what it ended up culminating to.
Oh, boy. I mean, I think it was very interesting how interesting the Saints made it for everyone.
True.
And how interesting the Panthers made it for everyone.
Yeah.
Yes, I think entering week 18, the idea was the Buccaneers are going to slaughter the Saints and the Falcons are going to defeat the Panthers.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know that anyone would have written up what happened and how close both games were. Broadcast probably couldn't have asked for anything better. So flowers to the NFL broadcast teams in that regard, having them play at the same time.
Yeah, the multi-view probably was working really, really hard for a lot of people.
Exactly. And I come away thinking like the Saints fought harder than the Falcons did for the Falcons' future, if that makes sense.
I mean, it's a good point.
Is that a weird way to phrase it?
No, I don't think so, because ultimately the Falcons need, to put it all out there, and I'm probably not saying anything that people at home don't already know, but the only way for the Falcons to reach the postseason and to clinch the NFC South was for the Saints to beat the Bucs and them to simultaneously beat the Panthers. That was the only way.
And the Saints had nothing on the line.
Nothing.
So, like, had they won, it would have been solely a morale thing.
Mm-hmm.
But the Falcons had their season on the line. Like, It wasn't completely all in their control, but they had to win.
Mm-hmm.
The Saints didn't need to win.
Yeah.
But the Falcons did, and one of them played that way.
Yeah. No, it's a good point. And, let's talk a little bit about the game. And I don't want to, honestly, because of how the game ended and because the season ended, like, I really don't want to talk too much about this game because in the grand scheme of things, I don't think anyone's really going to remember it.
But the script.
Well, no, the outline's about the game.
No, we're don't worry. I'm still going to go by the script. Don't worry, Will. I'm going by your script. But
I was like,
I just wanted to start off by saying, like, in the grand scheme of things, like, this game feels kind of like a throwaway game because of everything that happened to this point, everything that we're going to remember the 2024 season by. To me, it's not going to be how this thing ended and how it looked at the very, very end. Granted, outside of maybe what Michael Penix is doing. But let's talk about what this game was. The Falcons lost in overtime, again, 44-38. Amna, what was the most surprising part of this game for you?
That the defense folded in the way that they did.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Carolina, granted, Bryce Young has been playing a lot better, and the Falcons have been saying that all week. They took notice of what Bryce has been able to do, but the fact that, like, it just looked so easy for them. They were flying up and down the field. Bryce had 2 rushing touchdowns where he essentially just, like, walked in, like, you know, and a couple of those other touchdowns were just like wide open guys.
Yeah. Bryce Young ended the day 25 of 34 for 251 yards through the air, 5 total touchdowns, 3 passing, 2 rushing. And even without Hubbard on the field, because he's now on IR, the Panthers still averaged 5.2 yards per carry and scored 3 touchdowns on the ground. They were having significant offensive output that I even tweeted this performance by this defense did not feel indicative of everything that they have done since the bye week. It felt like a regression back to what they were before the bye week. And that was, I think, really disappointing. And I use that word disappointing not as Tori McElhaney saying that, but as Raheem Morris. That's the first thing that he said when he came in post-game is like, this was an incredibly disappointing performance from this defense. He even said it was a, quote, huge step back by this defense. Terrin, what are your thoughts about what was going wrong with the defense today?
Right. I mean, that's what I wrote about was how the defense took a, quote, huge step backward because Bryce Young had himself a day. They could not contain him, whether through the air or on the ground. And he wasn't intercepted once nor sacked once. And that is only the second time this season the Falcons haven't been able to do either in a single game. And this is coming after weeks of us being like, the pass rush has turned the corner. Like they are leading the NFL since the bye week in sacks. I was blanking on the word. Yeah. But it's just a complete different performance today. And I can't even say it's like a week 1 or week 2 performance out of the defense because the first half of the season, pre-bye, I want to say, it was kind of applauding the defense secondary specifically. Yeah. And you didn't see that today. Those passes were just being caught. It wasn't like it was a jump ball and you're grabbing it over a defender and being an immaculate whoa moment. It was so-and-so is wide open, catches it, and runs the remaining 5 yards into the end zone.
Yeah, Raheem Morris was asked after the game, you know, was this performance by this defense a little bit shocking? And he said yes. I thought he was very transparent in that, yes, this is not the defense that I think anyone had come to know Atlanta to be playing, especially of late.
Yeah. And the question was very specific in that with all the implications on the line in this game, were you shocked that they came out the way that they did? And he said, yeah, really shocked.
Yeah, I have the full quote here if you want it.
Go ahead.
Really shocked. I was really disappointed in our defense today, especially based off of how they've been playing and how we've been going, how we've been attacking the quarterback, how we've been able to manipulate in terms of getting after people. I was really fired up with where we were going, the direction we were going. We took a step back today, a huge step back.
Yeah. I mean, again, to his point, it's just disappointing the fact that you felt like the Falcons had made such significant progress as a defense. You felt like what they were doing with Caden Ellis and the looks that they were getting with him, the pressure that they were getting up front, what A.J. Terrell, Jesse Bates had been doing over the course of not just the last few weeks, but over the course of the season was pretty impressive. Heck, when we were on our podcast on Friday, I was standing on the table for some of these guys. And then to see what happened against a Panthers team that, let's be honest, through various points in the season had really, really struggled to move the ball offensively. And it just felt like they were just kind of slicing through butter with a steak knife today.
Yeah. I think Justin Simmons kind of summed it up where he said, we never played our best ball when we needed to throughout the entire season. That's a microcosm of not even just the defense, but the entire team.
Absolutely. And I think that that's something that we can kind of move forward a little bit to talk about the Atlanta offense, because despite the fact that Atlanta lost this game, I do have some stats that I want to read through because it's kind of a little bit crazy. The Falcons outgained the Panthers 537 total yards to 425. Bijan Robinson had 170 rushing yards with a 6.1 yards per carry average, 2 touchdowns. Drake London had 187 receiving yards on 10 catches, 2 touchdowns. Michael Penix Jr. was 21 of 38 for 312 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown, and the Falcons still lost the game despite that much offensive output.
Yikes. When
y'all are kind of looking at this offense and what it was able to do today, I think Raheem Morris did say very pointedly that the Falcons, if there's a silver lining that no one wants to hear about, but if there was one, it's the fact that what Michael Penix Jr. was able to do and the connection that he had with Drake London, what Bijan Robinson was able to do running the ball, what Tyler Algier was able to do running the ball. And that is a little bit of a silver lining there. So Terrin, I'll start with you. What part of the offensive performance is best suited to carry over into 2025 and even beyond as you're like kind of looking at this offense?
It's simple because it comes down to Michael Penix Jr. Mm-hmm. I think what was really telling in Raheem Morris's post-game press conference is one moment he would express his disappointment in the defense. The next, he would express his hope in the offense in Michael Penix Jr. Because in these 3 games, you did see a turnaround in the offense and what they're able to do. And you have to keep in mind, Penix was just thrown into this in week 18 minus 3, 15. Because he only had these 3 games. Imagine the bond he can build with an offseason under his belt with the first team. Yeah. Imagine the bond he can build with more than 3 starts with the first team. And that is something even Drake London in the post-game locker room afterward was asked, like, how difficult was it because you didn't have that much time with him? Like, how difficult is it to form that bond quarterback to receiver when you don't have that much time? And he admitted that it is difficult, and you can't argue that at all. Like, they didn't have much time together whatsoever, and yet here they are still making these plays that you're like, okay, I see you, Michael. I see you. And I think of the almost touchdown pass to Drake London. I can't remember what quarter it was because all the quarters blur together between the game in Tampa Bay and the game here in Atlanta.
So many quarters.
But Michael threw it to Drake in the end zone. Drake only got 1 foot down, so it was incomplete. The very next play. Oh my gosh. The very next play, he throws the exact same ball, but it's inbounds. And Drake falls clearly inbounds with it, and it's a touchdown. It's just like a little tweak right there in the moment, and you see growth. You see the success. You see how he's able to right the wrongs. And I think that's the thing Falcons fans and Falcons franchise internally can look forward to.
Yeah.
Which stinks to already be like, all right, next season.
I know, but it's the reality of the situation. And
2024 is over.
Right.
Literally and figuratively.
Literally, it's done. We're sitting here kind of post-mortem-ing. I don't even think that's a word.
I don't think that's a word.
But y'all get it.
Today's episode of Falcons Final Whistle is brought to you by Zaxby's. And after a long game, when I'm tired and I need to refuel, I turn to Zaxby's. Their marinated, hand-breaded, fried to perfection chicken fingers, they hit the spot every time. Get yours with seasoned crinkle fries, a nice drink, and whichever of their 12 signature sauces you're feeling at the moment. But it always hits just right. So next time you need to refuel, go get yourself some Zaxby's.
What's really interesting is talking to Michael Penix post-game about the connection that he has already developed with Drake London. And Terrin, to your point, he kind of made this comment where he was like, I'm excited about the offseason to kind of go into it knowing exactly who you have, knowing exactly what you need to do to get better, and having the time and resources to do so. And that was something that he seemed really excited about. He kept kind of reiterating to the fan base mainly to continue to believe in what this offense can do and what they can be. And we've seen glimpses of it. And what I'll say too is the connection between Michael Penix Jr. and Drake London, I think, is something of beauty.
Already?
It is a thing of beauty.
It is a thing of beauty. And I think the fact that they have this trust established so quickly bodes well for the future. But there are still certain areas in which Michael Penix, I do think, can grow. He is still a rookie quarterback that has had 3 starts, even though this guy is not afraid to sling the dang ball.
No.
He is. It's so funny because I oftentimes think that he doesn't know his own strength and that he just is throwing the ball. And sometimes I'm like, I want you to have a little bit of touch, take a little bit off of it so that it's not just smacking your guys in their face. But
yeah,
even in that, it's like you see. I said this on the podcast the other day, but like you see the vision, you see the control. Did it start off fast for him? No, he had a few very significant misthrows and overshots early in the game, but he's the type of player that you saw once he settled in what he could do. And by the end of the game, this is a guy who you trust to lead the team within a 2-minute and hit Drake London for a 29-yard gain.
Yeah. I mean, every time Carolina scored, it was like, oh yeah, Mike can come back and do this thing. You just felt that confidence.
Yeah.
Because he could sling it so far down the field, and those explosives lit this place on fire when it was, honestly, it was a little quiet when it started.
No, for sure it was. And I can't remember exactly what play it was. It had to have been one of the ones to Drake, but
I was going to say the thing that turned the vibe around was Penix's 9-yard touchdown run.
When he stretched out. You're right. You're exactly right. That was the play.
The man did it himself.
Yeah. And it was funny because I think he really didn't want to. In the moment, you could see him kind of motioning to Drake to like peel back towards the back of the end zone so he could kind of lob it up to him. And Drake's just kind of like,
I can't.
Nope, can't do that. And I was just I've just been very impressed with Michael Penix Jr. And I do agree, even though, again, no one may want to hear it, but I do agree with what Raheem Morris says, that you feel good about where he is in his development and who he can be for you in the future. But even in saying that, that doesn't take away the fact that the Falcons did not live up to expectations in the year of our Lord 2024. So I wrote about this post game. And it's the way that I've been feeling now for probably a few weeks, even probably a month, is that the Falcons and the perception of which they had for themselves, the expectations that they even set themselves for themselves, does not meet the reality of who this team is right now. And that's a tough pill to swallow when in an offseason that you changed your entire coaching staff, you have all new coaches in here, you went out and you signed a starting quarterback to a $90 million fully guaranteed contract. You drafted a future starting quarterback. You traded for an all-pro edge rusher. You got Justin Simmons, an all-pro safety, to sign here during training camp. All of these things and all of the way that things were shaking out in the NFC South, where you felt like the Falcons had the best roster in the NFC South, and the fact that it started at 6-3 with a 4-0 record in conference play and ended this way, where the Falcons lost 6 of their last 8 games and are sitting at 2nd overall in the NFC South, coming off of a loss against Carolina, like that leaves a really bad taste in your mouth because of how much you invested into this 2024 team, how much had been built into this 2024 team. This is a team that was, I'll say it, years in the making for this organization. And that's what makes it so difficult to sit here right now and talk about just this game and what it was, because to me, it's not just this game. To me, it's the years of from 2021, and you make the decision that you're no longer going to stick with Matt Ryan and you send him to Indianapolis, and you're trying to fight your way out of salary cap hell, and you get out of it, and then you build it and you sign guys and you create this roster and you go out in free agency and you do all these things and you draft all these guys, and then for it to amount to one more win than what you've had the last 3 seasons, it's sickening. It's really, really, it makes you sick because of how much went into all of that.
When you think of the 6-3 to start and then the 2-6 to finish, and then I think back to when the schedule came out and we did our schedule release podcast. It was like, oh, the first half of this season is super difficult.
Yeah.
And alas, they did better in the first half than they did the second.
No, that's such a good point, because I remember us sitting and talking and being like,
yikes.
holy cow, you face, Tampa Bay on the road, you face the Saints, and then to start the season, you had the Steelers at home and the Eagles and the Chiefs. Like, you're talking about Super Bowl contenders that are playing,
and they went in 6-3.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Only
it's
to go
mind-boggling.
2-6 to finish.
Right. It's such a tough pill to swallow, and that's what makes it so difficult even to think about 2025 and what next year could look like, because I don't really know exactly where the team goes from here. They have a lot of decisions to make, notwithstanding what they're going to do with the quarterback position, with the contract that they have kind of looming over their heads. A lot of one-year deals, a lot of guys who could come back, who could not come back, a lot of expiring deals. It's another draft. I mean, it all resets. It all starts over, but it's one of those things that it's like, oh, you didn't want to feel that you needed to reset things after this year, considering all the work that you put in. But as we kind of move forward and look ahead to 2025, Amna, I'll start with you. What are the key priorities for Atlanta entering into the offseason? If you had to pick just one.
If I had to pick just one, to not to be prisoner of the moment and be like, this defensive performance now means that you have to go in and reshape your defense. But there's a lot of guys who are coming off those one-year deals and a lot of decisions they'll have to make on defense. So I think that's where you kind of look, because of the way that they've invested on offense, especially in the draft in the last few years. Like, they're good. We see it. We see the vision. We see the last 3 number 8 overall picks. They looking good. They're clicking. So far, things are still going to shake out in the way that they do as games finish up here. But you're looking at, 14, 15, 16 in the draft. If you can find, we say it every year, right? Like one of those edge guys, or like you're getting back Braylon Trice. Like you need to reinvest again on your defense.
Yes.
Just as much as you've done your offense.
Yes. No, that's such a good point. And I know we're sitting here not really exactly knowing where the Falcons are going to end up, but it's going to probably be right in the middle of the first round is kind of what it's shaking out to look like, which I keep going back and forth. I'm like, it's prime real estate to go get a corner. It's prime real estate to go get an edge rusher. I know I've said every single year for the last 4 years that the Falcons need to draft an edge rusher.
Yeah, and I think that their mentalities has always been, take the best guy available, and that was always, an offensive guy. But you're going to be sitting there down in the middle. A lot of those guys who are like generational players
are gone.
They're gone.
They're gone. Yep. There's no Bijan Robinson at number 16. Just, I'm throwing it out there. Probably not going to happen.
You find your key rotation, your role players in those spaces.
Yeah. Karen, what's the key priority for Atlanta entering the offseason in 2025?
I want to know what they're going to do with Kirk Cousins' contract.
Yes.
It's a lot of money. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And then if he isn't in Atlanta next season, who's the backup?
Mm-hmm. And what are the repercussions of having to pay that contract out?
And getting a good backup.
And how does that pigeonhole the moves that you could potentially make to bring in more guys?
Right.
One, you got to think about it this way too. Like, there are some offensive line questions. You have a kicker because some of those guys are on expiring deals. You have a kicker question.
How bad is Yamwe Ku's injury?
Right. Also, how quickly can he get back to his old ways? Because you have to think about the fact that he was not as consistent as he has been in years past. That has to be a conversation. And then defensively, I believe Justin Simmons is on a 1-year deal. Mike Hughes I think this is his last year. I think Caden Ellis, this is his last year. David Onyemata, I believe this is his last year. Even if it's not their last years, I think they're nearing the end of their deals. So what does that look like? How much money are you actually going to have to play with? And you won't know that answer until you make a decision on what you're going to do with Kirk Cousins.
No, absolutely.
Okay. For those worried, Caden Ellis and David Onyemata will both be back next season. If their contracts are still live. So it's still, who knows? But
but if you need...
They have another year,
at
least on both contracts.
Yeah, but then it's kind of like, at what point, when do you
keep them?
Yeah, how much cap savings can you have? Like, if you, again, you won't know until you know what's going to happen with Kirk's contract.
This is the exact same thing I said last season. The quarterback is the first domino to fall.
It's everything we've said since they traded Matt to Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Like,
you're still paying for your quarterback position.
And that was not the position that the 2024 Falcons needed to be in. It's not the position that they saw for themselves. Like, the fact that we're having a quarterback conversation now for the 1, 2, 3, 4, almost 5th year in a row is a little headache inducing. And that's why I feel like with the fan base, I understand the frustrations, because it's kind of just what is it, like same thing, different year, just wrapped in a different package. And
New year, same BS.
And that's kind of where this kind of ship has sailed, for lack of a better metaphor.
That's my biggest question mark is what's going to happen with Kirk Cousins.
Yeah. I hate the term playing devil's advocate, and I hate to play it, but I actually will in this moment, because as much as like this is like same cycles repeating, I think for the first time, and I'll just quote Raheem Morris, you see a light at the end of the tunnel with Penix. And they seem, obviously a lot can happen, but I think when you're looking at what he's been able to do in just 3 games, it by far feels different than these other moments. I don't know. Maybe that's just my perspective, but
no, I think that's fair, because you think about where this team was at the end of when it was like Marcus Mariota to Desmond
and
Ridder.
That's kind of what I'm comparing it to.
And then from Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke to whatever came next, which ended up being Kirk Cousins. Like, I get what you're saying. You feel confident in what the Falcons have at the quarterback position with Michael Penix more than you have previously in the years that have kind of bridged the gap between Matt Ryan and where we are now.
Yeah, the conversations right now with Michael Penix Jr. are a lot different after 3 games than they were with Desmond Ritter after 3 games. After
100%.
his first 3 starts.
Yeah, and especially after...
Very different rounds of drafts, too.
Well, yeah, for sure.
So,
yeah,
point blank.
Apples to oranges. But
exactly.
I don't know. It's just really tough. And Amna, thank you for bringing up the light at the end of the tunnel.
That's not devil's advocate. That
was very nice.
That was the opposite of devil's advocate.
And you left us, on a relatively okay note. I'm gonna say relatively okay because I don't have anything else to say good. So my mom always told me, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. So we've been talking for like 25 minutes, so I'm gonna shut up now and allow everybody to get on with their day. But I really, really, really want to thank everybody for listening and following along with us all season long. It's been
can't say it was boring.
Can't say it was boring. It was anything but boring. We always had something to talk about, whether it was the last time we put on these headsets in the first month of 2024 when we were coming back from New Orleans and there was a coaching change, and everything that's happened since. Thank you guys for sticking with us. Our first annual Final Whistles coming on Friday. They are the 2024 awards that we will be giving out.
Not all of them positive.
Yes. Yeah. Will did say not all positive. So it's not just going to be
keep it real on the final whistles.
Exactly. The final whistles. Think of them as the what's on The Office. The Dundies.
Yeah, the Dundies.
The Dundies. These are the final whistles. And, so make sure you listen out for that. But please rate, review, like, and subscribe. Follow us on the Atlanta Falcons Podcast Network, wherever you get your podcast. For Terrin and Amna, I'm Tori, and we will see you guys real soon.